It's time for ACC Central, presented by Just Means Less.
I drive into right. It's enough. It's back. And it's gone for the cycle. It's a walk-off grand slam. Florida State wins it.
Hosted by Monty Taylor.
In the air, center field. Moore is under it. And on to Omaha for the Cardinals.
Micah Butel.
Fly ball driven into left field. Smith, does he do it? He does! A walk-off homer by Ken Smith.
And Nick Dioli.
Gets it down. Here comes Hawk. He is safe. And Boston College wins.
Fastball off the plate for 2 balls, 2 strikes. Monty just got landed on.
There are 2 pigeons roosting right above me, and my can of Pepsi
Smacked into right field. And
Welcome back, Just Means Less, ACC baseball fans. It is ACC Central. I am Nicholas Dioli. Micah and Monty are not here tonight, but never fear. We have a very special guest, a 2-time guest. Already, we got people in the chat talking about our special guest, Adam Cecere, former outfielder for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons and Penn State Nittany Lions. Adam, welcome to the show. You are this is your second time, and you're the second person that's come on twice as a guest. Lucas was the other one.
Lucas was the other one?
Yeah, we Mike and I interviewed Lucas when he was in Miami, so that was like an easy get for us.
Of course.
But Adam, welcome to the show. Welcome back. How are you? How have you been? You and Lucas, by the way, little entrepreneurs. How is that going? Why don't you give the people a little bit about tell the people what you've been doing the last years or so?
Of course. Well, Nick, I appreciate you having me on the show. Was I one of the first guests too?
You, Seth, and Lucas, we had all 3 of you guys on at once.
Yeah.
And that was to preview your 2023 season with Wake. And you guys were pre-ranked number 6. So you guys were like our big first-time baseball player guests. Yes.
I love it. So I was on back in 2023. It's 2026 already, man. But
yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. And as you mentioned, Cello. That's what I've recently, Lucas and I started. I know you're repping it right now. And I know Dioli's carries the product too, so we love them. But essentially what happened is Lucas Costello and I, we were playing baseball together at Wake Forest. We remained friends after our playing careers were over. We both got into coaching, and then we just had one conversation, and that sparked an idea for an amazing business that we just launched this past November, Cello Nutrition, like I just said. And things have been amazing. We have a lot of support from amazing people like you, our families, our former Deeks, our former Miami Hurricanes, and our Penn State Nittany Lions. So things have been great. I can't complain at all. We just dropped a couple new products actually recently. Yeah. So we have the Hydrate. We have the electrolytes out now. So we got the Hydrate and Recover line. Got this awesome watermelon mint with amino acids. We got the electrolytes with the creatine too. So we just started selling those, and people have been loving them. And of course, we have our protein brownie bites that are absolutely delicious. So I know we sent you a couple of the OG protein bars the other week, but got a lot of new products coming out. Love selling them to young athletes, young ballers, baseball people, and honestly, it's been amazing. The business side of things, it relates so much to baseball, and just like having a team and trying to move forward together day in and day out, and doing it with a guy like Lucas. And we also have Jimmy Broderick on the team. Do you remember Jimmy?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have
Elon,
Jimmy.
right? He went transfer to Elon, right?
transferred to Elon. So I've got both of those guys right on the team with me. It's amazing to work with them every single day. It's amazing to be passionate about, health, wellness, athletics, because that's what I'm all about. And things have been great. So I appreciate you asking. But if you guys haven't checked it out yet, go ahead, check us out on Instagram, cello.nutrition. So yeah, things have been great. I can't complain.
I can personally attest to them. I bought them myself. I've had so many of those bars. The blueberry vanilla is awesome. I do love the chocolate peanut butter too. I mean, both bars are so good. We actually had Dom Listy has been kind of working with us this season. He's been giving us picks. He's come on our show a couple of times. And he noticed that I was wearing the Cello shirt. And he was like, yeah, like Lucas and Adam reached out to me. So like you guys have done such a great job with your brand. You're going to, all these conferences and all this stuff. Like it's been so fun keeping track of you guys. Yeah, I mean, we have them at Dioli's. So if you're ever in the shop, we got them there. We have the chocolate peanut butter and the blueberry vanilla. Super good. I mean, you and I and Lucas and even Seth Keener, we have all talked about like primal nutrition, whole base, animal based diets. And I just love that like you guys have continued that trend and kept it going.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it changed our lives, right? Like health will obviously change your life for the better in the best way as a player and as a human being in general, just the way you feel, the way you think, and the way you act every day. So I appreciate the kind words. We'll have to hook you up. We'll bring some down next week. We'll have to hook you up. I know you're definitely taking creatine, right? I know you're definitely on.
Of course I am. Come on. 10 milligrams every morning in my coffee. Of course.
I love it, dude. So it's been great. I can't complain about it at all. I've only great things to say. And the best part about it is just learning every day. And that's in general with life after baseball, just figuring it out. And that's what I love about it.
Well, that's huge, man. You have also been doing some college baseball content. So what has that been like, being a former player, being a player that went to Omaha, you've been in 2 different conferences in your playing career. What's it like covering baseball and kind of doing some content as a former athlete?
Yeah. So essentially, I as soon as I stopped playing, I started coaching. I was coaching at High Point University with Joey Hammond. And by the way, all great things to say about that program as well. And they're killing it again.
They are killing it. High Point's killing it.
High Point is a good program. So I was coaching with them for a couple months. And then I actually got a job with the Philadelphia Phillies. I spent all last year coaching in the minor leagues with the Philadelphia Phillies, which was awesome because I had no pro experience. So I got to kind of see the college side from a player standpoint, from a coach standpoint, and then I got to see the professional side from a coaching standpoint. But while I was starting this business, I kind of saw the writing on the wall was I wasn't going to be able to continue to coach. I didn't want to continue to coach because I was really passionate about the business as well. But I was like, man, I got to stay around the game. Like I got to stay around the game of baseball. So I just started making content as much as I could. And I started posting on TikTok, mostly just about my experience as a player. And then, of course, once baseball season started, I started covering it a little bit, like a highlight or a clip that goes out or a weekend series that was really cool. I'll just talk on it about, my thoughts of situations, players, and things like that, because we all know college baseball is super exciting and it gets a lot more coverage now, but we're all trying to grow the game and you guys do a great job of it. So I'm just over here trying to do my part, making content as well, just so I can stay around the game of baseball because I don't want to lose that passion for the game that I really grew up loving.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's cool to see like guys just keep going. Even if they don't make the pros, they're somewhat involved. And, we like I said before, we have had Dom Listy on. He's been killing it on Twitter. He's been doing picks for us. I don't know how he gets away with this, Adam. He picks Clemson to sweep every single series. And Clemson's not having the best season this year, but he's like beating everybody in the picks this season.
You gotta stay homegrown though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised.
I don't blame him.
I'm a little surprised by the Clemson year in general, just because, I've seen when we would play Clemson, like how Coach Bakich would run just like a really tight ship. You know, they were always very fundamentally sound, always threw strikes, always moved the baseball. Tough team to play. So I'm a little surprised by the year they're having. But listen, you always got to pick your squad. I think I picked a couple games on a different pod or on Twitter too, and I pick Wake every single series this week, and I still will. I'm obviously going to pick them against Western Carolina this weekend, but
Right.
I pick them no matter what, dude. So yeah. Dom is cool. We talk. I talked to Dom a little bit. I met him actually just by doing content, and he's got a lot of great things going for him. He grows the game as well. So I love Dom. I have to catch up with him soon.
Definitely. Well, speaking of Wake, why don't we just go ahead and dive in to the non-conference? A lot of teams are have exams this week, graduations coming up as well. So it's that time of year. We had a few teams play some non-cons last week. Some teams are playing non-cons this week.
Yep.
Adam, of the non-conference matchups, we have Boston College going to NJIT, Western playing Wake, UNCG at Virginia Tech, and Oakland at Notre Dame. Are there any series that kind of spark your interest a little bit? Maybe, hey, watch out for this team if you're this team, of those 4 matchups?
I'm not a ton totally jump off the slate to me, like, wow, we better watch this upset right here. But I will talk about my Deeks a little bit, and I mentioned this to you prior to the show. So Western Carolina's they're number 1 in the SoCon, and I remember we used to play them in midweeks. They would always move the baseball. They were always a tough team to play. I think Wake will obviously handle that series for sure, but I wouldn't say it's going to be just like a totally roll through it, because Western Carolina, I believe they have a little bit of an older team. In Wake, in my opinion, has a little bit of a younger team. So you just never really know with that situation, because a lot of times in college baseball, those teams that are senior heavy, junior heavy, they play good brands of baseball. And you know, if you go out there and you walk some people, you make some errors, next thing you know, you're in a 1-run ball game in like the 7th or 8th. And that team has a lot of hope. So I wouldn't say that I think there's going to be a ton of a big upset this weekend, but I would just say for the Deeks, like, continue to be locked in. You're coming off you're coming off a series last week where they played. Was it GT last week, or did they? They played a home series versus. My bad. They played a home series. They're coming off a great win, 3 straight against Louisville. So, like, just don't get complacent, because you have a lot of momentum right now. Western Carolina has a solid RPI, so it's a chance to move up, you know. And I would just take that with them and run with it. Right? We finish on a sweep of Louisville. You just win it. You try to sweep Western Carolina, and next thing you know, you maybe put yourself in a position to host if you play a really good weekend at Duke next weekend. So for my Deeks, I would just say, like, listen, I understand it's a non-conference game, but college baseball is crazy. In baseball in general, it's hard to win games and it's hard to sweep. So I would just have the Deeks be locked in. The other interesting one was who's traveling to BC is traveling to NJIT this late in the season. Yeah. That's pretty wild to be traveling to like a school like NJIT this late in the year. So I know away series, like, BC is a good team. They're having a really, really good season. Probably the best season I've seen BC have since I started playing and following in the ACC. But you go on the road, you know, there's not going to be a big crowd, and you just have to be able to pick yourself up. The energy of the team has to be there. And if that happens, they'll end up having a good series. But traveling to a non-con like that is very interesting.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about BC a little bit, because they're a team that really wants to host, and they're on the fringe of hosting. And going to NJIT, where just by playing them, your RPI is going down. So you have to win these games. I mean, it's not like you got to take it seriously, because there is something at stake here. Now, if BC was a lock for a hosting bid, like let's say they're top 10, maybe they can spare one. But when you're on the fringe of hosting, I think this is something that you kind of got to take seriously. And same thing for Wake. I wouldn't say like their RPI, it being 21 right now, is really, really helping their case to host, but I still think that's a long shot. So, I mean, playing Western, I think, helps. And then for Virginia Tech, they're a team that needs a lot to go their way to get into the NCAA tournament. And they have some opportunities down the stretch. UNCG not having a particularly great season this year. Usually they are a pretty good squad year in and year out. I know they've given a lot of ACC schools some trouble in the past, but definitely not this year. So if you're VT, that's something that you kind of have to take a little serious because I know they have been on a little bit of a hot streak. So we'll see. But there are some interesting factors in these out of conference matchups.
Yeah, without a doubt, 100%. And I actually misspoke. NJIT does travel to BC, so that was a little. Whenever I initially,
yes, yeah. I had that written down too for some reason.
Yeah.
So
I think I heard you say that, and I was like, interesting that they're traveling there. But no, they will be at BC. But you hit it right on the spot with BC because, at least in my experience, there was another time where BC probably could have hosted. I think it was the year that they had. I don't.
It was 23.
Yeah, it was 23. It was 23.
Yeah, because if they beaten Bama, they would have played you guys.
Yeah, exactly. And they played us. That was the toughest series of the year for us. 100%. We won a 2 out of 3, but that team was really good. And obviously, that's when Coach Gambino was there, and I ended up playing for Coach Gambino. But for BC, they have to think of it of like, and I hate to say this, but the NCAA is doing everything they can for BC to not host, and I feel like that's how it's been. Just because like the facilities, I guess they say are not, they can't hold enough people, and obviously, they want to drive revenue in these regionals, in these super regionals. So if you're BC, you have to leave, no doubt. So I'm with you on that one. That's definitely one where it's like, okay, we can't drop a game here. If we drop a game here, the hosting is basically off the radar because they lost 2 out of 3 last weekend. So they lose 1 to NJIT. You're really putting it up for grabs there.
Yeah, and we talked about it. We've been talking about it the last couple of weeks. It would be great for the sport if we had expanded where regionals are, where these regional sites are. I mean, imagine if we had a Northeast regional site, because we know we're going to get some Californias. We're going to get some UCLA. We might get USC. We'll definitely get Oregon State or Oregon. So something up in the Northeast, instead of having all conglomerated down in the Southeast, that would be pretty cool. That expands the game, that grows the game a little bit. So I am hoping BC somehow, some way they can host, and that's a big time, like, don't blow it type of series.
Yeah.
So
and
they would be smart to drop the UMass Lowell game in the midweek next week.
Yeah, that although the canceling of the midweeks is always an interesting situation when it comes to the year, without a doubt. All of a sudden, there's rain in the forecast every Tuesday night. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
No doubt. But the non-con games, I think all these ACC teams should take care of them. All of them should be trying to sweep at the end of the day. Like, that's the mindset going into non-conference. The one thing about non-con, at least whenever we were playing, is like, you're probably going to see lesser velo and less stuff on the mound. And sometimes that's a get right weekend. Like, I know for Wake, they want to get Dalton Wentz going again.
Mm-hmm.
His averages dropped a little bit, but obviously he's a high caliber player. This could be a great week for him to really pop off, get his average back up over the 300 mark, hit a couple home runs. Because if they have him over, down this stretch and into the postseason, that's a big up for them. They got to have his confidence going. They got to get him rolling. And I like his game a lot.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why don't we dive into the conference matchups? We got a lot of interesting ones. Not a lot kind of stick out for me. Like, this is a big time series. Like, I think we kind of passed all those throughout the season, but we can dive right into a big one for Duke as they go to Atlanta to take on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Duke coming off of a weird week last week. I mean, they played UNC again, and they kind of got mollywopped. Our guy, Corey Muscara, has actually, I think he's been doing a pretty good job considering what he's gone through to assemble this team. And they started off pretty hot. I know they've kind of sputtered out down the stretch. But what do you see here, Adam? Georgia Tech coming off of another series win. They are definitely going to be a national seed unless something chaotic happens. But what do you see here? You think GT gets a sweep? What are you feeling?
Man, obviously I love Coach Moose. I love that whole staff over there with Coach Moose, Coach Loiseau. You know, Coach Loiseau, as hitting coach, was my hitting coach at Penn State.
Oh, get out.
Yeah. So
sense.
the actual a quick story to just give everyone a little bit of a background. Coach Loiseau was the head coach of Southern New Hampshire, and he actually gave Coach Muscara his first ever collegiate job at Southern New Hampshire University when they were like 23 or 22 years old. And I know that he was fired up to obviously take the job with Coach Moose. So it does pain me to pick against them. But I watched that. I've watched Georgia Tech a good bit. I watched them deeply against Wake, and that lineup up and down, that's tough to maneuver, dude. That's a tough lineup to move around. Like Wake Forest blew a 10-0 lead against those guys, and Wake's got stuff on the mound, and they were relentless. Like they were relentless. I was like, dude, they're going to come back and win. Like I could feel that watching it. So yeah. I'm going to have to take GT on that one. I'm not going to say they sweep. I'm going to give my boys from Duke and Coach Muscara a little bit of love and say they do take one. But I'm going to have to go with Georgia Tech there. That's a good squad. That's a really good squad. And Drew Burris is going pretty good right now.
Yeah, his he ranks first in something. I did stats last night, but he has actually gotten pretty hot. I'm going to look this up real quick because he leads in, let's see. And Jaron Avicula has been awesome too. I mean, he's just been such a stud for Georgia Tech. Where is he? He was leading in something.
What impresses me the most about Georgia Tech is how well they've been pitching. Like when we used to pick Georgia Tech, and I know obviously teams change every single year, but they could always hit, right? They were bringing Joey Bart through, Kevin Parada through, Andrew Jenkins through, like some Chandler Simpson through. They were bringing good position players through, but they can pitch, man. They can pitch. Yeah. They can pitch.
And that's been their biggest problem. By the way, I found it. Drew Burris leads the ACC in runs scored. So he's getting on base. He's finding ways to get on base. I know the power has not been what we thought it could be this season and compared to last season, but he's finding different ways to score and contribute. I mean, his defense is just elite. But back to what you were saying, yeah, that was kind of the question mark going into this season for Georgia Tech was their pitching. We saw a bit of improvement last year compared to 2024. And even in 2023, Adam, I remember looking at stats, and it was always you guys and UVA leading all the hitting categories. And so was Georgia Tech. Like Georgia Tech was up there with you guys, and both those squads went to Omaha, but their pitching was just not good. But yeah, I mean, as the season goes on, GT's pitching has been very, very good. They swept NC State, and that's when they had a healthy Ryan Marone and Jacob Duden, and that was a bit of a pitcher's duel going in, and GT came out of that. They've done a number on Florida State with that impressive pitching staff with Wes Mendez and Trey Beard. They struggled with UNC, but yeah, I'm going to take Georgia Tech 2 of 3. It's just, Duke has only been swept once this year, and they play scrappy. When Duke went on the road to Florida State, that was a very, very close series back then. And I don't think it'll be as close because I think Duke is, running on fumes a little bit. But I'll take GT 2 of 3 as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I think you're right on the money there.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Okay, moving on. Let's go to Chapel Hill. The Pitt Panthers take on the Carolina Tar Heels. Pitt coming off of a sweep. They got swept, I should say, against Florida State. UNC put that bludgeoning on Duke last week. Had a weird thing going on this week with exams and stuff. Pitt had the opportunity. They beat Virginia at home 2 of 3. It looked like they could make a little bit of a run, but Florida State shut that down this week, and Florida State kind of propped themselves back up into a hosting conversation for sure. Adam, the Pitt Panthers, they can hit. Their pitching's been iffy. They haven't been to the NCAA tournament since 1995. We're down into the stretch of the season. Can Pitt pull off a miracle here, or is just UNC just too good?
Yeah, I think UNC is just too good. The one thing about Pitt, and kind of what I said about Western Carolina a little bit, not to compare the two, but Pitt is a little bit of an older team. They're transfer portal heavy. They've got some older guys, obviously like Lorenzo Carrier. So that always gives you a fighting chance, like guys who have been around the game. And the guys who have been around the game can always put together some productive at bats. They always make plays in the field. But at the end of the day, you're at UNC. In UNC, we're talking about absolute star-studded. Like, we're talking about an elite team. If Pitt pulls that one off, I'll be surprised. I think North Carolina sweeps that series. I do. And that would be pretty interesting. I did pick Georgia Tech against Duke, but say Duke pulls off that upset against GT, I think UNC's sweeping this weekend. That makes number 1 seed in the ACC look pretty interesting.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think that would, without all doubt, UNC would be the number 1 overall seed, because I think that would just be too many games for Georgia Tech to catch up in, because now that UNC has the tiebreaker over them, they would be the number 1 overall seed in the ACC tournament. I'm going to go – I might join you on – I think I'm going to join you on this. I think Pitt has just ran out of gas, unfortunately. They made some really, really good noise this season. At one point, they were a top 25 team for me. I think in like week 7 of the season, they had inched their way there. But when you look at their schedule, their really big win was Virginia at home, and Virginia, has its ups and downs. They should be a fine team though, come NCAA tournament time. But if they went down to Tallahassee and got swept, or was that at home? I think Florida State went up there. I don't see how Pitt can. UNC's just got too much firepower. They've gotten a good rest. They didn't have to play a lot this week. So I'll take UNC in a sweep as well.
Yeah. An interesting thing about UNC is their ACC home record is worse than their road record. They're 7-5 at home, and they're 10-2 on the road. So that's a pretty interesting split, because usually you see the ACC teams handle their home series really well. Not saying that really makes a huge difference in this game. I mean, UNC only has 9 losses on the entire year. They sweep this weekend. They're 40-9. You're looking at a really good regular season. I think they handle it. I like the pick.
Awesome. Okay, we'll move on. We'll go out west. The NC State Wolfpack go to the Stanford Cardinal. NC State coming off of a much-needed home series victory against the Miami Hurricanes. I think NC State unless Miami can pull it off against FSU and at the end of the year and beat Louisville, I think we can kind of put a lid on Miami's hosting chances. I think they're still going to be a good tournament team, but a much needed victory for NC State. They go to Stanford. Stanford was getting hot there for a minute, but they were just swept on the road at Notre Dame over the weekend. Adam, what do you see here? Do you think State can pull off the road trip, or do you think Stanford's roller coaster of a season continues and they can pull off the upset?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. NC State's the better squad for sure. Stanford, in my opinion, the pitching staff is average at best. And the one thing about it, though, is traveling that distance is interesting. I don't know if NC State's done it prior. I don't know if they went to Cal at all.
Last year they went to Cal.
They did go to Cal last year, but sometimes that travel trip can do a little bit to you. You know, maybe you drop a game you shouldn't, because just like the little bit of the jet lag, the little bit of the time difference, like they're playing at 9:05 Eastern time, you know, and usually you're playing that 6 p.m. game. It's just going to be a little bit of a different thing for them. Like they're going to finish that ball game up like past midnight of Eastern time. And whether that makes a difference or not, I'm not sure, because you get out there a day early, you get to practice. But at the end of the day, NC State's a better team. NC State, they don't need, I mean, they need this one. They got to go get this one. They got to go get 2 out of 3 here. I like them 2 out of 3. I think going to the West Coast and sweeping is pretty impressive. If they do that, I'll be a little bit surprised, but I like State to take 2 out of 3 here. What about you?
Yeah. So here's the thing. State found some pitching to replace Marone and Duden, and Anderson Nance came up big time for them against Miami. And their freshman, Christian Serrano, Eli's younger brother, came up huge with the injury to Mikey Ryan at shortstop as well. So they found some bats. They found some pitching. It's a series that they absolutely, I think, need to have, or else you will find them back on the bubble again. So like right now, I consider NC State a lock for a 3 seed in a regional. But if they lose to Stanford, then UNC is a must win for your NCAA tournament hopes. So I think if they lose, they're back on the bubble. If they win, I think you kind of firmly stamp and like, hey, let's try to get 2 out of 3 against Chapel Hill. 1, we will survive towards the end of the season, and that's at home. So there's going to be a big home field advantage at Doak Field next week. I will take State 2 of 3. I think Stanford's bats have gotten a lot better, but we saw what State did to Notre Dame on the road when Notre Dame came to NC State. They swept them. I know I shouldn't play transitive property here, but I think State needs it most, and I think they're kind of desperate, so I think they will take 2 of 3 here.
Yeah, and I think 15 is the magic number, right? Like you get to 15, ACC wins.
You're looking pretty good.
Yeah, you're looking pretty good. They have a solid RPI. You know, they'll lose less than 20 games on the year. So I'm right with you there. They drop this one, and we're looking at it might be a must sweep the week after versus UNC, and I don't see that, but I like it. I like the take. I think we're right on there. I mean, we've been right on it right now. So let's
been. Yeah. I think for State, you go 4-2 the next week, you're a lock. I think if you go 3-3, I think you're pretty okay. But you cannot end the next 2 weeks with a losing record, or else you're going to have to do some pretty good damage in the ACC tournament.
Agreed.
NC State.
Agreed. I think you go 14-16 in the ACC, and you have over 20 losses. You know, you're not a 40-win club. I think it's tough to. I think you're on the outside looking in, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
All right, we will move on to Florida State taking a trip to Death Valley, not really Death Valley, but Clemson. Clemson is interesting. Clemson got the big series win against Boston College, and they checked off a huge box last night, beating Coastal Carolina. Now they get a top 25, or should I say, top 25 Florida State team coming to town. There's a path. I'm just saying that there's a path for Clemson to make some noise, build up their RPI, build up their conference record. What do you see here, Adam? You think Clemson can pull off an upset and kind of like make the path a little bit clearer for them to be an at-large bid?
Yeah, I honestly do. I like Clemson a lot, and I know the big BC win last week, like on paper, looks like a massive win. But at the same time, no disrespect to Boston College. It's like BC playing on the road at Clemson. It's like the majority of the years of you following ACC baseball, you're like, Clemson's winning that series every day of the week. And they handled business there. So this one, it's a little different because I like FSU a lot. I like their pitching staff a lot. Obviously, Miles Bailey going down really hurts the offensive firepower. But I think Friday night or Thursday, it's Friday night. I think Friday night decides this series, really, for me. Because like Connect will be going, Mendez will be going, and it's like who wins that game? You know, who wins Friday night? If Clemson wins Friday night, I like them in the series. I do. So I'm gonna go with Aiden Connect on a good game Friday night. I'm gonna go with Clemson winning that game Friday night, and then I think they take another one. I think they could win this series for sure. I'm gonna take them 2 out of 3. Now, do I think they have a clear path even with 2 out of 3 here? I don't know. That's gonna be tough. But I like them to win this series.
So here's the interesting thing with Clemson. Winning last night, they jumped up 4 points in the RPI, so they are firmly in the top 40. They're number 37. In between them is Virginia Tech, who is 26-21, who we will get to in a minute. They have a 13-14 conference record. And at 38, so sandwich in between Clemson is NC State, who's 30-17 overall with a 12-12 ACC record. Their RPI would be very hard to ignore, even if they end up with a losing conference record. And Clemson also finishes the year with Virginia Tech, a team that's also hoping to, their RPI is pretty good, that you kind of can't overlook them. You have to have a conversation. So if Clemson beats Florida State, I don't think they'll cancel their midweek because USC Upstate is a top 100 RPI team, and I think that's a neutral site game if I'm not mistaken. They would want to play that game. And then you play VT, and then you're kind of, say you drop one each to Florida State and to VT, you're sitting at 12-18 conference record. I mean, that's not great, but your RPI is going to shoot up a lot.
Yeah. I think they have to sweep one of the series, to be honest.
They would have to sweep.
I think they have to sweep one of these series coming up. And you know what it reminds me of, and this will probably pain some Clemson fans, but Clemson obviously has a lot of talent, but it reminds me a little bit about that. I don't think they're as good as that Florida team that got in at like 29-28 and then went to Clemson and won that super regional.
Yeah.
But it's like that caliber of club. Like we're talking about Clemson baseball here. So for me, it's like I think they have to sweep one of these series. I don't think they're going to sweep Florida State. Now, if they sweep Florida State, they're looking, then you go into VT and you're like, let's go get these games and see what we can do. But this weekend for them is a must win. But it reminds me a little bit of that Florida team that literally didn't even win 30 games. But made the NCAA tournament. So I do like Clemson this week. So what was your final pick on that one?
It's funny how you said that because we talked about that Florida team on Monday when we were talking about Clemson's path, and I brought up what was Florida's record, what was their RPI. Their RPI was like top 20, and they made it to Omaha, and they actually did really well that year in Omaha too. I think they finished 4th. That year. I don't know. I think I'm going to lean FSU 2 of 3 here because I think there's still a hosting argument for Florida State. And I think they want that edge over Miami going into Miami. And I think that would play a huge, huge role into that series next week. I just think, Clemson found something and they're going to continue to roll, I think. But FSU, I think the pitching has just been too good. Mendez has been awesome. I know Trey Beard's been struggling a little bit this season, but when he's on, he's on. Although it would not shock me. I will say this. It won't shock me if Clemson pulls this one out. But right now, I'm going to play it safe and go FSU 2 of 3.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. It's interesting because even when Clemson's having a down year, you're like, we're talking about Clemson baseball, like we're
Yeah.
talking about Clemson baseball playing a home series,
Yeah.
So it's always interesting because it just piques your interest. You're like, man, we're talking about a good baseball program here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I like
Yep.
it. I like the pick.
All right, we'll move on to Cal taking on the Wahoos in Charlottesville. Virginia didn't really play anybody last week. They played Bradford. So that was their finals week. Cal coming off of a series loss to Virginia Tech last week, 2 of 3. What do you see here, Adam? You think can UVA sweep? Do they still have a chance of hosting? What's going on in your mind?
If they sweep, they have a good chance to host, in my opinion. Who do they have next week? Do you know? I'm not exactly sure who they have next week, but it's a very. The thing about the ACC is I feel like always there's those middle of the pack teams that these last 2 weekends basically decide it for you.
Yeah.
And they got to go get this series. Cal at home. I mean, Cal's a young team. They're throwing a young lineup out there. Their Friday night guy's pretty good, Cal. But at the end of the day, I think Virginia's a well-coached club. I think they have a little bit of star power there, obviously with Gracia. Why am I blanking on the shortstop, the leadoff hitter? His name, I don't remember exactly. But anyway, some star power there, really good squad. I think they take care of business here. I like them to sweep at home. I mean, they're coming off an ACC series loss, a sweep, right, 2 weekends ago. So that took them from 12-9 in conference to 12-12. And it's like you feel a little bit of pressure here if you're Virginia. You're like, hey, I have the last place team in the ACC coming to me. Like, it's kind of put up or shut up time, but I like him a lot here. I think it's a well-coached club. I think Coach Pollard does a good job with his teams. They're always very fundamentally sound. Again, very good offense. And I think they take care of business. It's so hard for me to just sit here and be like, man, this team's going to sweep, but I think they're going to sweep.
Yeah, you got to think that by the way, they play Louisville to end the season. So not a whole lot like helping out your RPI, but I mean, like you go on the road. I think Virginia's got a legit shot of hosting just because of the schedule left over. I mean, Cal and Louisville, I think those can be series wins. And I'm picking UVA. I think I will pick UVA to sweep as well. I don't like picking a lot of sweeps because I think the depth of this conference has just been out of this world good. Like the bottom, we talked about this on Monday, Adam. The bottom half of the ACC, I would put up against any other bottom half conference. I think the ACC might be a lock at 8 teams to get in, which is, less than usual. Sometimes you get 9, sometimes you get 10, but it's weird. We're looking at probably 8 teams, but the bottom of this conference just kind of cannibalizes itself, where I would take Cal to beat Mizzou any day of the week. I would take Cal to beat Houston any day of the week, or Northwestern. I'm naming like the bottom teams of these conferences. I'm like, Cal could sweep one of these guys, like that's how good the bottom of this conference is. But I just think that Cal's kind of been running out of gas a little bit. UVA's got something to prove. There's hosting on the line here. And I think a sweep would kind of put a statement to the committee.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they sweep here, they go 15-12. Then you're anticipating a series win against Louisville, and you're looking at a 17-win ACC season with over 40 wins. That's almost 40 wins, probably more like 38 or 39. That's a host almost every year.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think we're right on there. I think they handle business.
Yep. Okay, and our last series, Louisville going down to Miami. This is a very interesting one. Wake Forest sweeps Louisville, pretty much ending any at-large bid hopes Louisville had going into last week. Miami losing a tough one to NC State in a back-and-forth type of series. The thing that bit Miami in that series that could bite them at home. Now, they've been very good at home. Their pitching has been very good at home, but their bullpen has been a concern all season. It seemed like they had it fixed for a little while until they went to Raleigh. What do you see here, Adam? I don't see. I think if Louisville beats Miami, I think Miami's still safe to make the tournament. They have a big opportunity next week against Florida State. But do you think they handle business?
I like this Miami team a lot. I've got to spend a little bit of time in Miami, got to be around these guys. It's a pretty close-knit unit. And honestly,
Yeah.
when I watched them play against Wake Forest, I was very impressed. And like you said, the bullpen is the question, right? But the starting pitching with Rob Evans and Siskar haven't been like Siskar's had a lot of innings in his career. And when people pitch a lot, they become better at the end of the day. Like, I know that sounds very simple. Like, the guy's thrown a lot of innings. I think Rob Evans is legit, especially he's been really good at home. I like Miami here. And I think for Miami, like, Miami's sitting right at that point of like, this could for sure be a team that hosts, like, no doubt. 33-14 and then 13-11 in conference. They handle business this week. They go to 15-12. They win 2 out of 3. They end up with a 7. They got FSU the next week. They win that one. Like, come on, that's 17-13 with a series win over FSU at the end of the year. Like, that's almost that again. 40-win season with 17 ACC wins. It's like, at the end of the day, that's almost a host every single time. I like Miami in this one. I do. I think if they can get good starts, they need length. They need length from Evans, and they need length from Siskar. Saturday they'll figure it out, but Evans has been 6 strong, 7 strong fairly frequently. In Siskar, he's going to give you 100 pitches. He's going to give you 110 pitches if you need. I like Miami here. I watched Louisville all last week. They played Wake to some tight games. Obviously, have a ton of respect for the program that they run, but I think this is like not the breaking point for Miami, but this is basically like, let's solidify ourselves either as a host or we're going to be a 2 seed, and I like them here. I like them to do 2 out of 3. I think Miami wins the Rob Evans Friday night start, and I think they win on Sunday against Siskar as well. Saturday, we'll see. That's when it all depends kind of just on the bullpen. Like, it's going to be a bullpen heavy game, and bullpen heavy games can go one way or another. We've seen that a million times.
Yeah, and Miami, I mean, Daniel Cuvée is still a question going into this series. I haven't really heard much word on his, I think it's a back issue he's dealing with right now. But having him back in the lineup, because Louisville also struggling in the pitching factor as well. And I think that was the key in that Wake Louisville series was whose pitching is going to show up at the couch. Because we know the ball flies out there, and Wake outlasted Louisville. I am going to go Miami 2 of 3. I think that was just what Wake did to Louisville was such a death blow, and it's like hard to come back from that mentally. You played 2 very tight games. The first game being 4.5 hours long. You had 2 umpires go out like in the same inning, which was freaking unbelievable. And then you had a very intense Saturday game Friday night game, game 2, I should say, where everything was happening. You had catches at the wall, insane double plays, Bill Salento being thrown out, bombs by Tage Davis. I mean, it had everything. But I think Miami will win this. I don't draw too much concern with Rob Evans. I know he was dealing with the ankle injury, which was a scary situation a couple of weeks ago. He seems to be fine. And watching them play NC State, watching that rubber match, the whole game, like they seem like you're right, Adam. Like you've been around that team. They're such a tight knit group. They look like they're having so much fun in that dugout. I think that chemistry is going to carry them through this series. And I think there's not like a mental block of, man, we should have had NC State. We let them crawl back into it. That could have been ours. They're back at home. It's a winnable opponent. And I'm sure they would like a little bit of revenge, right? I mean, this was the super regional matchup last year at Louisville that went 3 games. and was very close. So I'm sure there's a bit of a revenge factor there too. There's a lot of guys still on that Miami team from last year.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You want to put the nail in the coffin of the team that kept you from Omaha, really. Like that.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do at the end of the day. And I think you hit it right on the spot with, like, it's hard to bounce back from a sweep. Like now Louisville, you're sitting there, you're like, I'm 10-14, I'm 26-23. Like, even if we win all three, like I'm 13-14, I'm 29-23. The RPI is average. It's like, it's tough. But Miami, everything's in front of them. Everything's right in front of them. So it's all, it's like, they lose 2 out of 3 to NC State. That happens, man. You're playing at NC State. You win 1, sometimes you're happy with that. I'm sure they weren't happy with that, but sometimes you're like, listen, that's a tough place to play against a really good team. And listen, we got 1. We played a tight rubber match. Let's go get it next week at home, and then let's get Florida State at home.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right, well, that is, I'm pretty sure, I could be missing, but I don't think I'm missing anybody. That is our Week 13 preview. Adam, why don't we get into X factors? Do you have an X factor pitcher? I probably should explain this a little bit more to you. This is like the guy that this team is going to win this series because this guy's going to show up, or Micah kind of likes to redefine it as, if this guy doesn't show up, they will lose. And Micah likes to say that he wins X factors if that guy doesn't show up and he had a terrible series and the team ends up losing. He's like, technically I was right. He was my X factor. He didn't show up and they lost. But do you have an X factor player and why?
Yeah, I mean, I took Clemson to beat Florida State 2 out of 3, and I basically mentioned it earlier. Like, if Aiden Kanak throws a good game and they win Friday night, I think they can win the series. And like, picking a Friday night starter as an X factor is kind of funny because it's your best pitcher. But at the end of the day, like, if he shows up, like I said, if they win the Friday night game, I think they can win the series. So if X factor is, if this guy shows up, they have a chance, I think that's him. If he doesn't show up, I don't think they have a chance. So I really like Aiden Kanak this week, and I think he's a guy who pitches well in big games too. Like, he seems like never met the guy, but he seems like a very even keel, cool, calm, and collected all the time. Always going to go out there and give you his best stuff, whether it goes his way or not. I like him a lot this weekend to throw a good game, and I think that's the X factor pitcher for me.
Nice. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I'm going to go with Anderson Nance of NC State. And the reason why is he had a big time game Saturday night against Miami. Over 100. I think he got close to 110 pitches in relief, might I say. Like, that was all in relief too. Like, he came in the 3rd inning. Yeah, and he almost closed that game out. I don't remember if he closed the game out, but if NC State is going to get themselves off the bubble topic, they need their pitching to show up. We don't know when Marone is going to come back. If he does come back, it sounds like bullpen work for him in the postseason. We already know Duden is a scratch. So I'm going to go with Anderson Nance. He's been on fire. And he would be the reason why State takes the series on the road against Stanford.
I like that one. I think it's solid.
All right. And Adam, your player X factor.
Yeah, player X factor for me, it's going to be Jake Ogden at Miami, especially if Cuvée doesn't play. But even if he does play, Ogden's even more of an X factor. He's going to bat in that leadoff spot. He gives quality at bats. He got off to a slow start on the season, but he's picked it up as of late. Over a 300 hitter again. He's a guy who's been around the block, played some JUCO, played at UNCG's in his 2nd year now at Miami, 5th and final year. He might be looking at the end of his baseball career. And for Miami, it's like, yes, are they probably safe in being an NCAA tournament team? Yes, they probably are, right? Unless all hell breaks loose. But for him, if Cuvé's not going to play, you need that guy on base all the time. And if Cuvée does play, same thing. Get that guy on base, let him hit, let him be on base for Derek Williams, for Daniel Cuvée. Let those guys hit. And if they're going to go, if they're going to play Louisville and win, especially with their pitching staff that they have. They're going to have to score some runs because Louisville. I watched one thing about Louisville. They can swing it a little bit. Wake threw some stuff at them. But they move the baseball a lot. Like Wake is a strikeout team, and I know I'm always talking about Wake, but Wake strikes a lot of people out. They were moving the baseball. They hit some homers. Even at the couch, they were some true homers. So I do like Jake Ogden this week. I think he gets on base a lot. I think he scores a lot of runs, and they win the series.
Love it. Love it. I am going to go with a player, but I did not pick this team to win. But if they do win, I think it will be because of this player.
Oh, okay.
Give me Darren Purify of Clemson. I would love to see the bats continue to roll. I think that's been a big part of Clemson's success in the last week against BC and against Coastal Carolina. Jaron has been there last year. He's been, part of this team for a long time. I would love to see his bat catch a little heat if they were to win this series and keep this thing going for a little bit. So if Clemson were to upset the Noles, who I picked, I think obviously Aiden Kanak would be a huge reason why, but I think in that lineup, you got to pick Jaron Purify. He's been having a good season, and I think he'll continue to roll.
I like it because even though Kanak might get you Friday night, if he gives you a good start, you're still going to have to win another one. Like you're still going to have to win another one. You're going to have to score some runs. Florida State's going to. If you score a couple of runs against Florida State, you got a chance to win. They have a good lineup, don't get me wrong, but they can really pitch it. You go out there, you score 5-6 runs, you give yourself a good chance to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt.
Well, that's going to do it. Adam, it wasn't Rhett Lauder in the Yak, but it was Adam Cecere on Just Means Less ACC. That's still just like so cool to me that Rhett on the Yak. I'm gonna have to watch that later.
Yeah, me too.
But thank you so much for hopping on with me. You are obviously a 2-time guest and would love to have you back on again with the whole squad. We would love to have Micah and Monty. But is there anything else that you want to talk about? Anything on your mind as we, count down to the end of the season and end up in ACC play? Are you going? I know you told me offline you're going to Wake Duke at the end of the year. Are you going to make any other appearances somewhere? Maybe passing out some cello bars? What's going on with you?
Yeah, I'm going to go to that Wake Duke series. I expect there to be a little bit of sparks there. Those guys are all very high quality guys, like Coach Moose, Coach Loazo, Wes, Will Craig, all those guys at Duke, and then the Wake staff with Billy and all them. But I expect there to be a little bit of tension. I do. And I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to show up to that game. But honestly, Nick, what I've been thinking about a lot is like the structure of teams that play well in today's day and age of like the transfer portal, of NIL, of high school recruiting. And you kind of look around the board of teams that have success. And one thing I notice is, yes, the transfer portal has been very utilized and it's very beneficial. It helped us at Wake when we brought in guys like Bennett Lee, Michael Massey, Cole Rowland, but our core group was homegrown. And I see a lot of these teams who have a lot of success, the Georgia Techs of the world, the North Carolinas of the world, the Florida States of the world. These teams are basically homegrown with some plug and play, with a little bit of plug and play. I think some of these teams that are structured heavy on the transfer portal, I think it takes them a little bit of time to kind of get that chemistry together. And that's one thing I've been noticing. Like, I know we talk ACC on here, but Georgia is a team that hits the portal hard and they're always ranked super high, but they've yet been able to break through in the Wes Johnson era and even prior to the Wes Johnson era into Omaha. And that's a transfer portal heavy team. You see a lot of these teams, Coastal Carolina last year, even LSU, they use the portal a lot. But don't get me wrong, a lot of these kids are high school players who come into LSU, they're homegrown, they become a good team, and then they kind of plug and play where their weaknesses are. So I was talking to Billy Salento over at Wake just about, his thoughts on that. And he kind of reiterated something very similar on how can we get better at like recruiting high school players, but having the right amount of transfer portal plug and plays. So that's something I've just been noticing since I've been out of the game on like how these teams are actually structured in terms of like who carries the culture and the standard. That's the homegrown guys. And then the transfer portal guys come in and they either meet that standard and the team does really well, or they don't meet that standard and the team collapses a little bit. So that's just something that I honestly think is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think a perfect team to say like they brought guys in, kept their core together, and they have ascended is Georgia Tech.
Yep.
Like 7 of the 9 guys in that lineup were there last year. And that core is Drew Burris, Alex Hernandez, Von Lackey. And they bring in Zuck. They bring in Jaron Naviculin. And those were 2 guys who were the stars of their teams, but they didn't go anywhere. But they stuck out, and Georgia Tech got them. And they have just been in the culture. They've been, I mean, Jaron, I always mess up his name. Jaron has just been so good for Georgia Tech, getting on base. His batting average has been phenomenal. And Zuck with his power at third has been amazing as well. So I think when you talk about a team that had a set core, because I watched these guys last year in person in Stanford, and they reminded me a lot of your 2023 Wake Forest team, just like the camaraderie, how loose they were. They swept Stanford on the road that year. And I was like, I haven't seen a team like this destroying teams and having fun doing it since the Wake Forest 2023 team.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's only gotten better since since 2025, obviously, for this Georgia Tech team. So yeah, I hope to join you for Wake Duke that Thursday night. It will be Wake Forest graduation, as you probably are familiar with. But I will be working. That's our Super Bowl at Dioli's, is Wake Forest graduation weekend. It just sucks that Wake is playing Duke and Carolina is playing State. It's all happening at the Triangle. I just would love to spend my weekend there, but duty calls. But yeah, Adam, again, thank you so much for joining. This was a lot of fun. I would love it if you could come back on and continue to kill it with Lucas and the Cello.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. And you know I'm always available. I can be available whenever you need.
Perfect.
All right,
and as always, it just means less.